What does this button do? Cool.
Hey, it's Green Machine Comics, and I'm back. I had the plague, so Yogi had to take over last week, and I thought he did a pretty good job. It wasn't too bad, but a lot of stuff happened. So let's go over some stuff real fast. Let's see. The Joker trailer dropped. I have picked the trailer apart. I must have watched it about 100 times. So we're going to have a sort of wrap up and our thoughts on the trailer. We're going to do that. I don't know, maybe tomorrow or the next day, whenever. We'll get to it very shortly. The next thing what else dropped? Another trailer. The Star Wars trailer dropped. The Star Wars trailer dropped.
Which trailer though?
Oh man, and I have watched it also like 100 times, but I don't know how to break it down because they've wiped the slate. They can go anywhere from here. It's pretty wild, but it looks great. So I'm pretty hyped about that. We found out a bunch of other stuff. What is it? IG-88, the Assassin's droid, is going to be in Mandalorians. That's dope. And then, if you didn't see the news, the Cathedral of Notre Dame burnt down yesterday, which is, it kind of hit me hard. Now, I'm an art history fan, but I tend to favor the more modern stuff, so like realism to Dada is totally my thing. I am not a very classical styles fan. However, that really hurt because like all of my friends who are really into the classical styles, like Notre Dame is pretty much their Disneyland, so that was frightening. And I heard they rescued a relatively large portion of the art collection. The cathedral itself, I hate to say it, it's been bombed before, it's been burnt down before. It will most likely be rebuilt, but the art history is what I was mostly worried about. Go figure, comic shop owner. Uh, that's one of my jams. So that happened, and so let's get into the reviews for this week. It's been a wild time. I've been recovering from the plague. I think I already said that, but man, you guys, if you guys can avoid the flu, avoid it because, oh my God, it is the worst thing ever this year. One of my scientist friends said it's the strain from Spanish flu from 1918, and yeah, I've never been that sick ever. So avoid that. So we're going to get into it, and we're going to start with what everyone wants us to start with this week, which is the War of the Realms event. And oh God, guys, oh God, I think Marvel has finally hit gold with this particular event because it's so good. Go figure. I think it's Aaron writing it. And who else? Aaron and Del Mundo. But anyway, so let's see here. So this is War of the Realms. This is issue number 2. We only have the variants for it because guess what? We're sold out. Like all of our copies have already been like subscribed to for good reason. And this issue in particular, it breaks down how they break into their certain teams. So I would say this particular one is a must-have if you're going to be into the War of the Realms stuff. You've got to get this issue. It was really, really good seeing it break down that way. Jane Foster is in play. I don't want to spoil too much, but she does hit someone with a boat, which is pretty darn funny. So yeah, this War of the Realms issue is outstanding. And keep in mind, I liked the last one. In the last one, when they invaded Earth, the sort of countdown to them invading the last few seconds. Did you read it?
Half of it.
Oh, it was so good. Like that was a very, very tense moment. And this continues with that, but it's quite fun. And I'm even wearing my War of the Realms. They sent us name tags, so I've got Spider-Man in a funny hat as my name for the day. But yeah. So I'm fully on board with this. Go pick this issue up. Issue number 2 is not too late to jump in on the event. Get it, please. The next book for War of the Realms is Thor. Now, Thor is in Jotunheim. I believe I pronounced that right. That sounds pretty good. Jotunheim. Like Yoda. Jotunheim. So I messed it up. But anyways, so he's in the land of the Frost Giants. It is a really fun event. However, you should know that this particular issue does not center around Thor. It centers around his brother Loki. Still good. We saw Loki die in the first issue. I don't know. I don't know. You never know with Loki. But yeah, go pick this up. It's pretty darn good. Plus, yeah, I just love the writing for Thor these days. Next is War of the Realms Punisher, and this was my favorite read of the week. I gotta tell you guys, because I don't hide that I'm a Punisher fan, but throwing the Punisher into an event like this is abnormally brutal and beautiful. The way he picks apart frost giants the same way he picks apart people, and it's so good, dude. So yeah. So basically, the Punisher is going to wind up with a bunch of villains, not villains, a bunch of prisoners who are pretty much going to be his Suicide Squad, and he's going to rush them through the tunnel to move a hospital through the Jersey Tunnel. So that's what's happening. That's this entire book in a nutshell, and it was so good. I had a good time. So if you really like action, this is totally your book for the event. Next is one that I was kind of shocked that I had as good a time. So this is War Scrolls. It sort of centers around Daredevil and getting what we confirmed. We thought that he was going to get this. Well, do you remember what it was?
Cosmic.
No, it wasn't the Cosmic. It was the Sword of Heimdall.
Oh, yeah.
We thought he was going to get it.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Okay.
So he's got it. That's all you need to know. Not a lot has been explained. However, it's pretty good. But this War Scrolls book is not one story. You should know that. The actual Daredevil story is short, really good. I wanted more, but very short. And then it follows an Asgardians of the Galaxy story. And then it follows a Punisher and Wolverine story. And more importantly, the Punisher and Wolverine story, that event happened in the mainline War of the Realms book. And so they touch more on that. And that one was really good too. The way they meet up is great. It's like, hey man, heard you were dead. Yeah, I'm not. Okay. And oh God, I got to tell you guys this. So I'm going to maybe the tiniest of spoilers.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Dark elves are allergic to iron. So guess who their worst nightmare is? Somebody who slings a lot of iron.
Ah, like a man of iron? Of sorts?
No. Well, that would be a good one, but yeah, no. Yeah, it turns out it's the Punisher.
Oh,
Because they're like, it's like he's got a supply of metal flying out of his body. Like, yeah, that's a pretty good assessment of the Punisher.
I think so.
Next is another book that I was super hyped about this week. And you should know it by now. I sing enough of its praises. But the new Bendis character, Naomi, is great. What did we find out last time? Do you remember?
Oh, man. We found out Dee and the parents are not from this.
Not from the... Well, her mom is still from the... His adopted mom is still from the Earth. But, so... What we found out last time was her dad took her to a spaceship, and we thought, was setting it up for her. This was the spaceship you came in, and even she thought that. And it turns out, no, that's the spaceship he arrived in. So her dad is originally from Ron. He's a Ronian, so he fought alongside Adam Strange, which is a dope place to take this character. So I don't know if she's going to become like a sort of Adam Strange-esque character, but she may come from somewhere else, and it may be sort of explained in here, but not quite. And there's so much I want to talk about with this book, but I can't spoil it. All I got to tell you is you need to go pick up Naomi. Go pick up the second print of the first, second, and third book if you can. Get your hands on it somehow. Hit eBay if you got to do it. I think we still have a couple copies left of maybe 3, but I think 1 and 2 are totally gone. Naomi is a great read. Pretty much everything Wonder Comics these days is a great read. Go pick this up. Are we good?
One copy.
We have 1 copy left of Naomi 3. Go pick it up. Next is a book that I'm still on the fence about because, okay, let's face it. Major X, I'm sorry. I don't think Liefeld is the best artist, in my opinion. This is my personal opinion. And I don't think he's the best storyteller. And he kind of tips his hand to everything in the first issue. What do we find out in the first issue?
Mother bike.
The Mother Bike. Major X comes from an alternate timeline called The Existence. They have a leader called X something.
We know who his dad is.
Yeah. McCoy is spelled with a K, and he's gray in this one. He's a gray beast. There's all types of weirdness. We found out he spoiled everything about the Major X character in the first issue. He doesn't know how to hold his hand. He just tips it everywhere. So, who is the character? Do you remember? Bishop's kid.
Yeah.
Was it Bishop's kid?
No,
It's
Cable's.
Cable's kid. That's what it was. Cable's kid.
Yeah, he's great.
So, totally spilled all the beans, and that was the first issue. So there's really nowhere to go except for, they go to, Major X's timeline, and they go from there, and that's this book. And I don't know. If the thing about Liefeld is he creates really strong characters. That's his one strong suit, I think, is not necessarily his art, is not necessarily his story, the way he writes. I think his strong suit is the characters he created. And Major X is pretty cool. I will agree with that. So I think you shouldn't miss out on this book for that. Plus, you get all the weird, like, Hollywood-looking cocaine faces from all the different characters that he draws. So that's in here, too. But I'm happy to say that Liefeld is not the main artist on this one. It's Peoples. So he did the cover, and he's done the last cover, the whole last issue. And this one, I think Peoples is the main artist. So good for that. Somebody else take, or maybe it's Hannah. I forget which one's the main artist. Anyways, I would say go pick this up if you want to get the new character from Liefeld. It's going to be a big deal eventually. It's just he's not my cup of tea, is all I got to say. All right, next book we're going to get into is Avengers No Road Home. And if you haven't been following this is the Hercules-centric event. And I think it's been a weekly. We've gotten them like all the time. Like, yeah. And it centers around Nox sort of killing the gods of Olympus. And then, pretty much waging war, and the certain Avengers that were there took part in that. And eventually they crossed over with Conan. And so this event might have brought Conan into the mainline Marvel universe, like the mainline stuff. I can't spoil too much. I will say that this is the wrap-up. And what this basically centered on was a fight between Vision and Nox. And that's all I'm going to tell you, other than the fact that it was a really, really, really beautiful wrap-up. And this event hit me out of nowhere. I keep calling it an event, but it's just a one-book thing. It just went 10 books. But I didn't expect to fall in love with this, and it was really, really good. The writing was great. The art was great. The wrap-up, honestly, this final issue is one of the most beautiful things I've read since we've opened the shop. Like, Vision, especially Vision countering something, he does it so well, and it's delivered so well. And there's so many one-liners that I want to just rip from this book and say on a day-to-day basis. So I'm not going to spoil this any more than saying that's what happens, but you need to go check this out. And honestly, if you haven't jumped in on this particular book, we've got a lot of copies of the previous issues left over. I think we might have one of each. And it was so good. Totally worth checking out. So come pick this up. Avengers No Road Home. A great showing from, I guess, Ewing, Zub, Mark Waid. Oh, Mark Waid's involved. That's why it's so darn good. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about two books, and they tie in today. They both came out this week, and that is Buffy and Angel. What? I didn't even know we were getting Angel. They tie together. It's really great. If you don't know what they're doing with Buffy, basically they've taken all the characters, they've accelerated some of their timelines, they changed a lot of their origins. Things don't quite go as expected, but it's basically they've taken the same characters and the same sort of scene, and they've given them a modern spin, because it's 20 years later. But they're still teens now, just in the modern age, and they make fun of the 90s all the time and call it dated. It's great. Oh, God, the writing is so good. So I've been having the best time with both of these books, and it doesn't change in this at all. This one centers around Xander. He might be in some trouble. If you don't know, Xander has always been, they call him the Zeppo in the series, and he's sort of the clutch hitter. He's the human. He doesn't really have anything going for him in the main story, except for, like, he's a construction worker or something, like, eventually. But he's still the clutch hitter. He always comes through in the clutch. He always does something unexpected. He's not a witch. He's not a vampire. He's not a vampire hunter. He's just a person. And so he's dealing with those issues sort of early on in this series where he's feeling kind of useless compared to everyone else. And, so that's where this picks up. And this is really good. Angel ties into it. Sort of, they're setting the stage for Angel to make his big appearance in the Buffy universe. We knew it was going to happen. I just thought he was going to come before Spike, and they totally did it backwards. So that's cool. I'm having a great time with these. Come check them out. I need a drink because my throat is going. I'm not fully over everything. Next is Savage Sword of Conan. So this was, in my opinion, the weaker of the Conan books. I really liked Belit, the Pirate Princess one. I liked Conan the Barbarian. This one sort of centered around him dealing with magic, which is still the same thing. Now, my opinion of it is the old, like, Conan comics, the old Conan books. Generally, when magic came into play, like, Conan would mostly just drink. He would run around killing things, and then when magic came into play, he would scream about demons and run away. That's generally what the character did. This isn't the case in this. He's dealing with magic quite well, and he dealt with magic quite well in Avengers No Road Home. So it's sort of a different take on Conan for me. Not to say I'm not having a good time. I'm having a pretty good time with Savage Sword of Conan. I just don't think it's as strong as Conan the Barbarian. But still a pretty good showing. If you like sort of fantasy stuff, you know you'll be at home with this kind of book, so come pick it up. Next is... Excuse me. Too much root beer. Next is Meet the Skrulls. And this is pretty much the Americans redone. You know the Americans, not the old, I guess. Is it old now?
Something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 5 years old. But it's basically a spy sort of story where they're sort of living undercover. And that's what they're doing with this. So they're doing the Skrulls as the Americans. And basically they're trying to stop Tony Stark from getting technology that will allow them to reveal Skrulls around the world. They don't want to be revealed. They want to sort of live in hiding. And whether or not that's because, I mean, in the mainline Marvel universe, realize it's different from the Captain Marvel movie universe. Like, the movie universe is separate. Skrulls in the mainline Marvel universe are generally a problem. They're not good guys like happened in the movie. It led to the Secret Invasion, which was one of my favorite events of all time, which I don't think we're going to see in the cinematic universe because Skrulls are now sort of a good guy. But we'll have to wait and see. Was that too much spoiler? The movie's been out for like a month, right? I think it's good. If I spoiled it for someone, I'm sorry. Anyways. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyways, so this is still really, really good. It centers around a family, and they're sort of tasked with being spies. And one of the daughters is not really getting with the program. And that's been the sort of constant for the last 2 issues. So in this issue, they sort of come to grips with the fact that they might be more family than spies. And I think that's pretty good. That's some good character growth. It's a pretty good read so far. I've had a good time with Meet the Skrulls. I would say go check it out. Next, we're going to talk about Justice League. And you know that whenever there is a Justice League issue that says Legion of Doom and it looks scrawled across like graffiti, it centers around Legion of Doom. And actually, this issue centers around Perpetua. And what we know of Perpetua is she was pretty much the first being to start creating universes. And then she got like the Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and I forget the other one's name. But basically the 3 brothers were centered around birth, life, and death. And the Anti-Monitor obviously being death. So they go into that origin in this. And Perpetua technically is a new character, but they're staging it as she is this old, ancient character that no one knows. And the Doom has been trying to like birth. So the Legion of Doom has been trying to bring her back. And that's pretty much it. They go into basically character building on Perpetua, which is super interesting. I like this character and I want to know a lot more. And pretty much the universe has been dealing with the tragedy of the Source Wall falling and the fact that they might be hurtling towards some type of death or judgment. Like, everybody's a little concerned at this point. So now Perpetua is sort of, well, she's here. She's here. And it marks the beginning of the year of the villain for DC Comics, which I'm super excited about. And come see us in 2 weeks. The Wednesday before Free Comic Book Day, we will have 25-cent copies of Justice League. And that centers around the whole Year of the Villain. It will center around Perpetua. Come check it out. Please buy it. 25 cents, you really can't go wrong for a book like that. Next is the Star Wars Age of Rebellion stuff. And no, the other one's not Age of Rebellion, is it? I guess not. Wow, okay. So Age of Rebellion, this centers around Yoda, but it's actually a collection of stories. And the stories themselves are, let's see, one of them centers around IG-88, the bounty hunter droid, who is one of my favorite characters, likes to call people meat sacks. So it centers around him. Another story centers around Yoda. Another story in this centers around Biggs and Wedge, which I actually had the most fun with the Biggs and Wedge story. They're really kind of comedy relief when you take them out of the mainline story. I had a really good time with that story. So Star Wars Age of the Rebellion special, like, let me tell you, the Star Wars writing is much improved these days. And I know we didn't like reviewing the comics a while back because they just weren't up to snuff. Like, even both me and Steven, as giant as Star Wars fans as we are, we're not having the best time with them. And all of that has started to change. So you really need to owe it to yourself to come check these out if you're a Star Wars fan. And yeah, you really can't go wrong with them these days, I don't think. I haven't read a bad one since Aphra, I think.
No, like Dark Visions has been like superb.
That's the Darth Vader one, right? Yeah, that one's been great. Which leads us to another really, really good Star Wars book, and that's TIE Fighter. And I didn't think I'd have that much fun with TIE Fighter, but I totally did. And what was really cool about it was, like, At one point, one of the pilots in this was sort of haunted by the Death Star blowing up. And it's nice to see like their mentorship and their sort of team and how they come together and how they unwind and stuff like that. And
Pretty damn cool.
pretty cool writing. And I don't know, one of them could be a rebel. They tend to go that way with Star Wars. It might happen. You're going to have to come check out the book and find out. But Star Wars TIE Fighter, darn good read too. Next is a book we bought solely on title alone. I'm not the biggest Aftershock Comics fan, I got to tell you. However, there are one or two titles that I just can't pass on, and Mary Shelley Monster Hunter is absolutely one of them. Now, keep in mind, this goes into the origin of Mary Shelley, and her actual origin when she birthed science fiction, which if you don't know, that's what she did with Frankenstein. She birthed science fiction. And the reason she did it, my friend Carrie Cesarargo, who's a writer, has a very funny explanation where she says that Mary Shelley was hanging out with, her future husband and Lord Byron, and she was basically trying to like shove off all of Lord Byron's obnoxious advances because he thought himself, well, he was a poet back in the day, a very famous poet, and considered himself to be a ladies' man. So she was trying to brush him off because she was just better than him. So she just randomly birthed science fiction that weekend because she was just like, I got nothing else to do. Might as well get this guy off my back. And the origin of the beginning of this book sort of plays out like that. It's a little funny. But it ultimately leads to her meeting somebody named Frankenstein. And it goes from there. I'm pretty sure it's going to be comical. We're going to see her jumping around, probably hunting monsters with weapons. And it's not going to be like just Mary Shelley writing Frankenstein. But it's pretty fun. I had a good time with this book, so I would say go check it out. If you like the birth of science fiction, you like Mary Shelley stuff, you know who you are. You probably have a good time with this. God, this cold.
Dying on me. I have to put a cough count word there.
I'm gonna make it. Next is Shuri. And let's talk about Shuri. Shuri has had a pretty wild ride, and this has put her... She's been currently helping fight a guy who can summon black holes with a gauntlet and didn't realize how dangerous his science project was. So she went to go help, and she took Miss Marvel and Miles Morales, and it's a pretty good matchup. Honestly, that's a good team. There's some good charisma here. I had a pretty good time with it. They sort of wrap up what happened in the last couple of books, and it was sort of your standard wrap-up. There was nothing really unique to it, but it was still, this team's got a lot of charisma. So if you haven't been reading Shuri, I'd say jump in. If you're a Miles fan or a Miss Marvel fan, you could probably jump in on this issue of Shuri and still have a really good time. I did. So go check that out. Next is The Amazing Spider-Man Hunted. So if you don't know, Kraven the Hunter has decided that he's going to kill himself through Spider-Man, because Kraven the Hunter can only die to a totem animal that is a spider. So, and he's done it once before with Spider-Man apparently. So he's pretty much going to suicide by Spider-Man. So he's unleashed his son, and his son is sort of through cyborg robots hunting all of these other totem animal creatures. And the last issue was Gibbon, who's being hunted. And I didn't know the character Gibbon all that well. I think I maybe read one or two books with him in it before. But his life was really tragic, and they went over the tragedy of his life in the last issue, and then he died, and it was so heartbreaking. It really, really hurt me. So you really need to go pick up 18.HU, the Hunted, Amazing Spider-Man the Hunted. It's good stuff, and this is no different. Lizards, basically, he had to turn his family into lizards to save their life, and he had to they were living in the sewer, and then his son got kidnapped, and that was like 4 or 5 issues ago. And so his son is being one of the people that are maybe being hunted over in that whole event. So he's pretty much sacrificing himself to go save his son. He's ponying himself up with Taskmaster, which is very funny, by the way. I love seeing Taskmaster get kicked in the nuts, and writers love to do it. And it happens all the time. And I don't mean literally kicked in the nuts. I mean sort of figuratively. But it happens all the time. It happened like 2 issues ago. With a pretty funny event, and it happens again in this, and it's just great. But this is a very, very touching story about, a father loving his son, and sort of a father kind of being redeemed in a way. So go pick this up. It's great. Next is Pearl, and Pearl was one of my favorite books from last year, and they decided they were going to continue it past 6 issues, and I was so thankful for it. And we're on the 8th issue, and now Pearl is in Japan right now, going to talk to like the Yakuza. She's going to talk to the Yakuza. And they have a very cool fact at the beginning of this book. And the fact reads, Bob the Builder in Japan had to be recensored to have 5 fingers because they were worried that kids would consider him Yakuza. Because they cut off one of their fingers when they joined, right? Isn't that something like that? They cut off one of their fingers and then they start getting tattoos and stuff?
Yeah.
Ooh, it's so cool. So that's a cool fact. But I love everything about this story. Probably more, the writing is really, really strong. I think it's Bendis. Yeah, it's Bendis. The writing's really strong. But Gaydos, the artist, is so amazing. Like, the way Gaydos uses watercolors and does layers of watercolors onto the backgrounds of other watercolors, it's really beautiful. You owe it to yourself to go read this book because it's so good. And this is no different. You could jump in on 8. All you need to know is she's going to Japan. She's got to deal with some stuff. And that's pretty much it. You don't need to know anything else. She's got people she answers to, and it's fun. It's really fun. Next is a book I really, really tried to love. So here's the thing. I don't share the same sentiment on the Ghostbusters stuff. I know you didn't quite like all of the last Ghostbusters movie. It wasn't your favorite cup of tea. Because you're a hardcore Ghostbusters fan. You like 1 and 2.
The classic one.
Yeah, and I'm a hardcore Ghostbusters fan, and I liked 1 and 2. But I still had a pretty good time with the last one. I wanted to know more about this team. So at least we're getting them in comic form, even though it's a one-shot. And I'm sad to say the one-shot is not terribly strong. It's okay at best. So I don't know. The writing wasn't the best. The writer is Grayson. Oh, Grayson. Oh, but not my favorite Grayson. But you know, whatever. But it wasn't the strongest writing. There was some stuff I liked in it, some stuff I didn't like. It was nice to see this team doing more stuff in comic form. But if you're a big-time Ghostbusters fan, you know who you are. You're probably going to go pick it up. If you're anyone else, this is not the book to start with. I'm sorry.
Last week's was so good too, though.
Last week's was good. So
Yeah.
can't win them all.
Yeah.
Next is Batman, and we need to talk about how long the nightmares have been going on. How many issues has it been?
It's been like a couple months, man.
It's been a lot of issues. So if you don't know, Batman is basically the last thing that happened, which was like 10 issues ago. Thomas Wayne ambushed Alfred and then ambushed Batman in the Batcave. And that was it. And then we started getting these really surreal stories that weren't normal. They were called nightmares, spelled with a K. And it became apparent that he was being doused with Joker toxin. And so he's been tied up by Bane and Thomas Wayne, and he's being doused with Joker toxin. And he's sort of working through how to fix that issue in this book. And more importantly, there was something I thought that was really surreal that was happening with Bane and Thomas Wayne. And no, that was actually happening. I thought it was like some part of the nightmare. And that was really, really funny, I gotta tell you. It was pretty funny. I don't know if we want to spoil it, but Bane learns the hard way that Thomas Wayne doesn't play fair at all. He's not like his son.
From an outsider's perspective, when Steve was reading this, he was like, dude.
Yeah, it was wild. So the weird thing about it is any other book going on like 10 sort of dreamlike sequences, stories, I would have had a problem with. But half of these played out like poetry, and the other half played out like just a really, really good story with good art. So I got weird cut off from our camera. But so any other comic, if they had gone on 10 issues, like just doing dream sequences and nightmares, I guess you could say, I would have had a problem with them. However, this one, each one of these has played out either like poetry or like a really well-written story, and it all had really gorgeous artwork. So I've had the best time with Batman this year, and you should really jump in on this stuff. It's great. It's absurdly good. And this issue, granted, he's sort of coming to terms with how to handle the whole nightmare issue, and that's fine. I think you could still jump in on this and be comfortable. I think you could jump in on any of these sort of surreal ones and be comfortable. I'm going to be sad to see them come to an end. So Batman is kind of a must-buy if you're a DC fan. Next is Miles Morales' Spider-Man. And this is issue number 5, and these have been really, really good. I've had a good time with them. Granted, They're very, I guess, youthful, and which makes sense being Miles. But there's a lot of fun, sort of lighthearted comedy to these, and this one is no different. I've had a really, really good time with it. It sort of centers around the fact that Genki might not be able to make webbing for him any longer, so they're sort of trying to figure out what to do about that, and that's kind of fun to see them work out. On top of that, there's sort of a new team of villains, and actually a new villain altogether. And the villain itself is very... I don't want to... It seems like it's a counterpart to another Spider-Man villain. A very cool one. And I was really hyped to see it. So I would say go pick this up just for that alone. There's a first appearance in this book, and it might actually be a pretty cool character. So go pick it up. Miles Morales, pretty good. Next is Daredevil. And these Daredevil books have been great. Absurdly good. Which is... It does my heart some good to say, because, like, Daredevil before they sort of killed him but didn't kill him, the living without fear, that whole thing, was not my favorite run. And this one has totally changed. So he's met up with the Punisher. Basically, everybody thinks he's killed a man. Even he thinks he's killed a man, and he's not entirely too sure. So the police were sort of closing in on him, and then Frank Castle shows up, and all hell breaks loose. And so Frank Castle rescues him, but mostly because he thinks that the Daredevil has become a man like him. Oh, wow. And he's not. He's not a man like him. And Daredevil and Punisher, they have good charisma, but when you go at Daredevil with that sort of attitude as Frank Castle, you might eat some crow. So that's fun to see. I had a really good time. And something bigger might be coming from this. I don't want to say, but the last page was sort of like, whoa, what is happening here? So, yeah, Daredevil number 4, go buy it. It's great, and it's definitely not too late to jump in on.
I gotta ask, does that tie in at all to War of the Realms?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not, which is weird. You also need to know, there is a lot of books, for some weird reason, that feature bats, the dog from Doctor Strange, the ghost dog.
Yeah.
So he is in War of the Realms this week. He is in, what's that Wolverine one, the Infinity Watch? He's in that one. He's in another book. I don't think it was War of the Realms. For some reason, the ghost dog is in everything. And I like bats, but it's just really weird. I don't know why that was. So I'm just letting everybody know. Everybody's throwing bats into Marvel books these days. Next is Planet of the Nerds. And we bought this for the weirdest of reasons. So we had somebody go crazy about one of our other Ahoy Comics books. It was the Two Worlds one.
Yeah, the Wrong Earth.
Wrong Earth. That's what it was. It was Wrong Earth. We pretty much had somebody call up and want to buy, like, every issue we had and all of our backstock. And we were like, cool, like, we'll do that. So we figured we'd check out some of these other... God, that cold just won't die. We figured we'd check out some other Ahoy comics, and this was one of them. And so this basically centers around, it's the 80s. It starts out in the 80s, and there are some very sort of Revenge of the Nerds frat boy types that are picking on a guy because he's a nerd. And they're sort of chasing him down. Get that nerd! And it's very stereotypical 80s, right? And so they follow him eventually after they've been picking on him to a lab that he set up in an abandoned house. And one of them gets mad at him and breaks open the lab, and it turns out like it freezes everything. And then they wake up now. So they've been cryogenically frozen, and they stumble along to a Comic-Con and start screaming nerds, and because there's nerds everywhere now.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a very weird fish out of water story. And
I want to read it.
yeah, it really reads like a Revenge of the Nerds sort of movie,
Like a
kind
National
of.
Lampoon kind of
Like,
thing?
yeah, it kind of feels like it's starting off. Just the main character screaming nerds. Like, I could just see him with a Viking hat. And God help me, if they get to the end of this run and they haven't put him in a Viking hat just once, I'm going to be disappointed. Really disappointed. But so, Planet of the Nerds actually had a pretty good time with this book. It's weird. It's weird as hell. Still had a good time. So I'd say go check that out. Next is Nightwing. And we're not going to show you the mainline Nightwing cover because, well, this one's better. This is the variant. And the variant for Nightwing this week is absurdly good. So I think you should go pick it up. We got a few copies of this left. But if you don't know, Nightwing's basically given up his persona to a whole team of Nightwings who accidentally found his secret hideout when he tried to burn it down. And so there's a whole bunch of new Nightwings, and he's sort of the odd man out. They don't realize he's the OG Nightwing. And meanwhile, he's been dealing with a head injury, and this picks up where that has left off. So he's going to encounter another villain, and he's sort of doing it with my favorite of the new Nightwings, the Fireman Nightwing. And so I had a really good time with this book. I'm still having a pretty good time. I'm a bit concerned that the whole Team of Nightwings thing is getting a little old, and I sort of don't like Rick Grayson's costume. It sucks. It sucks. He like smears ash across like his eyes, and he like runs around with a rope. His new costume sucks. He needs his old costume or something new. Make it, I don't know, make him a green Nightwing. Just pick something new. But I don't like his new costume. That's all I'm gonna say. The rest of it is still pretty good. I'm still having a pretty good time with this. But granted, I'm kind of a Bat Family fanboy, so you can take my word with a grain of salt. I think if you're a DC fan, you'd have a good time with this. If you're a Marvel fan, you want to dip your toes in some DC, Nightwing's a pretty good book to do it with. Next is the magnificent Miss Marvel, and I'm still having a pretty good time with this run. It's better than the previous. I didn't have a bad time with the last Miss Marvel run. I must preface this. Did not have a bad time with the last Miss Marvel run, but was getting a little worn on it for some reason. I'm not sure what it was. This, however, seems a little fresh, a little new, and she's sort of been wrapping up and dealing with the fact that she saw her parents melt in front of her because they weren't her parents. They were like doppelgangers. And so she fought like all these other weird doppelgangers. And I don't know if they come from Queen Doppelpopulis, but we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
That's a C-Lab reference if you don't know that. Yes. But, so they're sort of wrapping that up, and there's a villain that was one of her classmates that sort of makes a reappearance in here. So if you know Miss Marvel, you probably know who it is. However, this Miss Marvel writing, it's fresh, it's new, it's pretty good. I'm having a good time with it. So I would say, if you're a Miss Marvel fan, go check it out. Good stuff. If you're a DC fan, you want to dip your toes in some Miss Marvel, some Kamala Khan, that's a good book to do it with. All right. Dip your toes in some Kamala Khan. That sounds weird. That sounds weird. I did not mean whatever weirdness came from that. I'm sorry. Dip your toes in some Uncanny X-Men. Wait, that's weird too. Okay. Uncanny X-Men number 16. What do we know about this? It's written by one of my favorite writers, Rosenberg, who writes The Punisher and writes action really well. And this is no difference. So, the X-Men team is sort of coming to terms with the fact that they're not the same team they were. That should be apparent. They're not hanging out at the X-Mansion. They're like kicking it at a bar. They're sort of wrapping up like a lot of the loose ends. They've gotten Dark Beast. They've gotten Banshee. They're sort of hunting down like all the main X-Men villains. And the reason they're doing it is because they know from experience that these villains are always a problem for mutant kind, and they always paint mutants in a bad light. So before they reveal that the X-Men are completely back, they need to hunt down these villains. And that put them on the path with Captain America and the Avengers. So Cap showed up at their door last issue and was like, look, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know all the problems you guys have caused in the past. He's like, if you're going to do this, do it by the book. Give me some people. Stop trying to make your own prison here. Like, hand them over to the Avengers and let us deal with them. And so that's what they do. Okay. And they're coming to terms with how they're going to deal with their leadership. Cyclops is now legitimately a Cyclops. He's lost an eye. That's funny to me. I don't know why. That's really, really funny to me, though. Good job, Rosenberg. That's some strong writing. Give that character a good flaw. Make it funny. So anyways, having a great time with this run. If you're looking at the cover, you know who's in play right here. Or maybe in play. I don't want to spoil it. She might not be in play. But yeah, Uncanny X-Men. It's not too late to jump on this. It's great. Really, really good writing. If you like the mutant stuff, this is your jam. Marvel should apologize to you for all the red, blue, and gold stuff. I don't know if it was your jam. It was definitely not my jam. A lot of the other X-Men stuff was not my jam for a long time. However, Uncanny X-Men is great. Next is Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is the fight we've been waiting for. What do we know? They're trying to find Gamora because Thanos is going to be coming back to life. They know it. Everybody seems to think that Gamora might be the reason he's coming back to life. Like his consciousness might come upload to his favorite daughter. even though she killed him. She was the reason that he got beheaded. So the Guardians are hunting her to protect her, and the Dark Guardians are hunting to kill her. And guess who jumped teams? Cosmic Ghost Rider. He was like, if you guys won't kill her, I'll go kill her. So this puts the Guardians on the warpath with the Dark Guardians, and it's great. It's great. There is a giant fight between these two teams, and I wanted it from the beginning. Granted, it's only 4 books deep. They could have waited a little longer before this big fight. However, pretty good time. And if you go and look at the Dark Guardians team, like, there are definitely counters to each one of those characters, which is really cool to see. So, on top of that, we need to talk about Beta Ray Bill, because he's so funny, and I love Beta Ray Bill as a character. He's not utilized enough. He's a fan favorite for comic book fans, but casual fans have no idea who this character is, and I feel bad for them, because he's so awesome. And even in this book, he's awesome. Every one of his one-liners is either funny or pretty charming in how it's delivered. So, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, go check it out. It's a damn good read. Not too late to get in on that. Next is Xena Warrior Princess. This is a #1. And all I'm going to tell you about this, it's hard to discuss without spoiling, but there's not really too much to spoil. If you know Xena, you kind of know how an episode plays out. And this is a Xena episode. That's essentially what it is. It's like an episode of Xena. So it's totally worth checking out if you're a Xena fan. I was into her, I think, the first 2 seasons. And then I sort of fell off with it. It wasn't really my cup of tea. I don't know why.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines too. I had an ex-girlfriend who used to watch it.
Yeah. I think I was into Xena, and then I was like, I discovered Buffy, and I was like, whoa, Buffy's amazing.
That was all around that same time.
Yeah, it was. So
I watched Kevin Sorbo's Hercules though too. I did that.
yeah, wasn't Kevin Sorbo in trouble for something?
God, I hope not.
God, I don't know. Anyway, so Xena Warrior Princess, pretty good. If you like Xena, go check it out. It's not bad. The art is the reason I'm saying, maybe it was okay. The art didn't sell me on it. The art is not the best art. It's weird because they show like Mars Attacks on the back, and it's sort of, the art is kind of comparable to Mars Attacks, where it's sort of art that it does the job, but it's not the best art. So that's just my take on it. Again, another book with bats in it this week. Bats the Ghost Dog. And that's Wolverine Infinity Watch. And let me tell you, I didn't like Wolverine Infinity Watch from the beginning because I didn't like the Infinity Wars event we had recently. There was too many books. I had event fatigue. This came on the heels of it. And I've still had a pretty good time reading each one of these. I haven't hated them. However, this one is still pretty good. I think that was going to disappoint you. The only thing is they sort of go and find bats at Sanctum Sanctorum. And yeah. And then they take bats with them. And Loki's got a spaceship that is essentially a Viking-style ship, I guess you could say. So that's weird. And Logan's like, why don't you get the Guardians if we're going to go into space with this thing? Because this is just weird. And they take Bats the dog. And then Logan takes Loki's crown from when he was a kid, Loki's youth crown, and puts beer into it. And Bats is like, that's not hygienic. And Wolverine's like, you're a dog, just drink it. And they get Bats drunk too. So it's like they're rolling around drinking beer, BSing, picking up ghost dogs. And I had a good time. I didn't hate it.
Sounds like a Friday night for them. Huh?
Yeah, it was like, it's the buddy cop comedy I never knew I wanted. And I'm having a good time with it. So Wolverine Infinity Watch is a go. I think it's pretty good. Okay, next book is Age of X-Men Next Gen, and here's another event that I'm starting to get event fatigue about. I don't know. They don't reveal enough, which is weird to say because usually I get upset when people tip their hand too soon. However, this one, it's been a lot of books. How many books is there? There's like 7 or 8 in the series. There's a lot of books in the series, and each one is going 3 to 5, I think. And this one is on issue 3, and I'm starting to get a little bored with it. So what do we know? We know Age of X-Men. We know X-Man is the alternate Summers that can control a lot of stuff, and he's sort of like Space Jesus, I think is what we were calling him. And it's become apparent that this reality is not real. and all the mutants keep coming to terms with the fact that the reality is not real, and they get reprogrammed, and it's sort of a dystopia utopia, and I get it. It's not real, okay? I get it. Everybody's coming to terms with that. They've been doing it for like 2 or 3 books, and each one of these books, it's time to fight back, okay? It's gone on long enough. Let's have them fight back. Let's have them get to the bottom of this. But this is, well, it's the same stuff. If you like a long, really, really drawn-out story where nothing changes. In fact, the worst part about this was the first book I really, really liked. It had Gloop, I think is his name, Gloop. He was like feeding chickens, and he was talking to like one of the other people about like the reality and stuff like that. And, you know, it went to the end of the... And in this issue, it's got Gloop feeding chickens, talking to one of the people about how the reality is not real, and I'm bored. So,
They all can't be winners, huh?
if you're a mutant fan, you're probably on board with this. If you're anyone else, I'm sorry. This is wholly skippable right now. And I don't know, maybe some gold will happen when they wrap it up, but they need to wrap it up. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm sorry. Next is Port of Earth, which is a weird book. I think we took a chance on this book. It's by Image and Top Cow. I didn't know what to expect because I hadn't read any of the other Port of Earth stuff. But it basically deals with the fact that Earth is now sort of a hub, a port for alien life, and they're sort of roaming through the Earth. And interstellar stuff is trading with them, and oh no, they've got the space flu. And the space flu is mostly harmless to everyone else in space. However, to humans, it's deadly. So they have to decide if they're going to accept an alien species help, which will put them in their borders and like, you know, in our borders, and will give them some control of like weapons and how they shake people down and stuff like that. Or if we just keep letting our people die, which I think is a very, very sort of unique political take, and it's sort of referencing some stuff that happens in society these days.
Like a Jefferson or a Benjamin quote, like peaceful slavery or dangerous freedom.
Yeah, maybe. So it's interesting to see. I didn't have a bad time with it. One of the other things that really sold me on this was the artwork. I had a really good time with this artwork, which is weird. At first I was like, whoa, it looks kind of skimmed down. And then by the end of the issue, I was like, whoa, I kind of like it. It's a little gritty, but it sort of fits. So Port of Earth, granted it's issue 9. I'm not sure if this is the book to jump in on issue 9, being this far down in the series. However, I jumped in on it. I wasn't confused. So if you want a little sci-fi in your comics this week, Port of Earth's a pretty safe bet. Next is Teen Titans, and this is the Terminus Agenda. And what do we know? Robin and Red Arrow have been up to no good. No good for them, I guess you could say. They've started their own prison below their headquarters. And the prison, or I don't think it's below their headquarters. I think they got it hidden somewhere else. But it's called the Terminus Agenda. And they've got a whole bunch of prison. Brother Blood is there. A whole bunch of big bads that you really shouldn't lock up together. And then one of them is Deathstroke. And you can't really lock up Deathstroke very easily. So, yeah. That's...
Deathstroke's game on the cover there.
Yeah. So something doesn't work out well for them. And then on top of that, Kid Flash finds out and he's like, guys, this is twisted. Like, we're supposed to be heroes. We're not incarcerating people. Like, that's not right. And I think it's pretty good. Damian, in my opinion, Damian has too much of his grandfather in him. And it shows in this book. And that's something I want to see more of. I want to see more flaws in characters and how they come to terms with, whoa, maybe I made a mistake. And so this has been pretty good. You should be reading this, however, with Deathstroke because they're companion books for the next, I think, couple of months. So go read these together. But if you're a Teen Titans fan or a Deathstroke fan, you should be on board with this. It's good. Next is Iron Man. And what do we know about Iron Man? His brother Arno is in play. They don't see eye to eye. Is that his name again? Arno? I think it's Arno. Arno? I can never remember his name. Iron Man has been stuck in his virtual reality simulating world called Escape. It's a really good name for a simulated world, I guess you could say, a VR world. It's grown sentience and it's been trying to trap him. We've seen old school Iron Man in that stuff. Other characters join that. Guess what? I can tell you, and meanwhile the rest of the world is sort of grappling with stuff, trying to stall for time, trying to wait for Tony Stark to wake up so they can help him. and his brother is sort of teamed up with a rival corporation and is trying to, do some bad on the side. And I don't want to spoil too much, but all I'm going to say is you might see the God Fighter armor. What is it? God Burster armor?
God Killer?
No, it's not God. Is it God Killer?
The one that kills the
God Buster. God Buster. Because it's Hulkbuster, God Buster is what I remember. So yeah. So you might see the God Buster armor if you go pick this up. Go pick it up. It's pretty good. Iron Man has not been my jam for some time. I don't know why. I just haven't been connecting to the book. However, the last 2 issues have been pretty spot on. I've had a pretty good time with them. Last issue in particular, because they showed like an old school Iron Man with roller skates, which was the funniest damn thing I've seen in a long time. So go pick these up. They're not bad. They're not bad. Good showing. Next is the last book of the week. Aw. And it's Aquaman. And I'm going to be a little hard on this book. One of my problems with this, they've been doing sort of Aquaman washed up on like foreign shores, didn't know where he was at, didn't have his memory, and it was playing out like a sea myth. Yeah, and it was pretty good. He found out that the other people around him were sort of gods, and they were dealing with sort of a big god that had been hurt in the past, and this is sort of the wrap-up of that event. Now, keep in mind, how long has this event been going on?
sometime now. It's been, what?
Since Drowned Earth, man. So it's been a long time. And in my opinion, it hasn't, I mean, it's not really an event. It's been going on with the book, but it's felt a little too long. Like maybe it was 2 books too long. Now, keep in mind, the wrap-up is pretty good. And if you're an Aquaman fan, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with this book. However, I will just tell you that I feel like it went on too long for what the content was. It's still a pretty good sea myth story, so if you like that sort of thing, you know who you are. As an Aquaman tale, it's not bad. It's not what you're used to, but it's not bad. Had a pretty good time with it, but, I can see some people being a little tired of this stuff since then. So if that's the case, just know that I think there's one more book where they sort of put a bow on everything, and then they're going to be getting back to the mainline Aquaman stuff. So that's happening. However, this was still a pretty good showing. That's all our books for this week. We're going to do our drawing real fast.
We're actually going to do 2 drawings because I dropped the ball last week.
So how many numbers are we drawing?
Oh, God, 6.
6 numbers. We're going to draw 6 numbers
I think we got enough in there.
of subscribers to give them posters.
Get posted.
Do we have enough posters?
I believe we do, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
And give me one. No!
I dig deep.
Unfreeze! It's frozen. Hang
It's
on.
okay. It can be frozen. We can talk about random stuff.
Random stuff. Yeah.
What other stuff? Do we have any other comics news?
Comics news.
Silver Surfer Black is coming, and Donny Cates keeps hinting how everybody should rush out and buy. Somebody posted, they were like, what book could I buy that will go up by 200% value? And they were pretty much just making fun of people that sort of flip books on eBay. And he was like, 2,000% value with Silver Surfer Black. Go get it. So I'm sold because I like Donny Cates. So if he tells me 2,000%, I'm going to buy that book.
There we go. You ready for this?
I'm ready. Number 137 is our first winner.
That would be Jameson Galvez.
Jamison Galvez. Come get your poster, man. Number 47 is our next one.
Oh, down there on the list. That's going to be Ashley Lentana.
Ashley Lentata. Come get a poster. Number 36.
36.
Let me spin it one more time.
Edgar Gomez.
Edgar Gomez. Hey, Edgar won one. Edgar with the Monster Donkey Kong from
The
Smash Brothers tournament. Man, Edgar is a mean guy with Donkey Kong. 85.
85. All right, we are looking at Abraham Beltran. The Beltran.
The Beltrans. You won a poster. Next is 88.
Okay, we are looking at Alejandro Bonilla.
Alejandro Bonilla. Heck yeah.
All right,
Alex, you've won a poster. Next is number 56. This is the last one.
last one. Drum roll. Derek Chin.
Derek Chin, you've won a poster. So that is all of our drawings, and that's our video for this week. And my throat is going to give out because I'm still recovering from whatever the plague was that I had. So that's it. We'll do our Joker breakdown, and we'll issue that as soon as we can. And until next week, we forgot to drop that line. What was that line we came up with last week by
Oh,
mistake?
It's like, movie Green Grab.
No, it was like Green Machine fans and friends of fun.
Power.
Green Machine friends and fans of fun.
Yeah.
We forgot to open it with that. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it next week. GG. Do the dance.